let's make sure I have it on screen before we mess around. Okay. Okay. Got it. Got it. I'm looking at it. Are you?
We're looking at your homepage. We're looking at just the regular search browser here.
That's not it. Okay, leave studio. No.
All right. So thank you for joining us live here at Tyrant Slayer Studios. We are joined by two very special guests. We may be joined by the great Kevin Allen from the Kevin Allen Show. Many of you may have heard of Kevin Allen. He's been plugging away pretty hard here in the state of Connecticut. We are joined by Mr. Andrew Pritchard, and we are going to be delving into the turmoil that's associated with this very egregious court case. And a very good man, a whistleblower, a muckraker, in every sense of the definition, Mr. Sam Magliari. Now, this man has, we briefly touched on this maybe about a week or 10 days ago or so. And this man, from what I have gathered thus far, has absolutely been illegally incarcerated. There seems to be a retaliatory effort on behalf of the state of Connecticut to essentially silence this man and make his life a living hell just because he is a whistleblower. We're going to find out exactly what's going on. We're going to get Andrew Pritchard's take. We're going to give him a moment to introduce himself. We're going to get John J. Flynn's take. We're actually going to be looking at some court documents during tonight's live stream, and I hope that you guys stick around for all the fruit, because it is going to be very fruitful. This is a very important topic of discussion. It is a very serious matter, and it is very commonplace here in the state of Connecticut. It looks like John has been able to successfully get that documentation up for us. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and let Andrew introduce himself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, what you do, how you got involved in this case, and what you think about it so far, sir.
Well, thank you for having me on. Give you a little bit about myself. I've lived in Norwalk for 47 years. I've raised 3 boys here with my wife, Bridget. Currently living here with the 3 boys when they get back from school, and 3 dogs. My background, I guess, in the corporate world is I did a lot in construction, and had a construction company for about 21 years, doing high-end homes in terms of real estate and things of that sort, mostly on spec building. I also have had a very successful career in finance, basically involved with very sophisticated arbitrage and new structured products. To that end, I hold the first securities patent ever issued, and it's the patent that enables you to trade carbon credits. I was one of the 4 people that brought out a thing called exchange traded funds, which you all know about. It was done through a vehicle called Super Trust, which then was copied by the American Stock Exchange, which brought out spiders and did things of that sort. Anyway, because of all of that background, I had to spend a lot of time reading through a lot of legalese and also interpreting legalese because of creating new structures and new products, learning about patent law and things of that sort. So I, over the years, have picked up a bit of a skill set in terms of things with the law. The reason I got involved with this case is because of something that I'm personally fighting in the courts. My house is in foreclosure. My house is a $3.25 million to $3.5 million home on the water that I bought 26 years ago and rebuilt. And basically over that time, Norwalk waterfront became a place where people wanted to live. The banks came after me for a $200,000 mortgage. So I have basically $3 million plus of equity. They the courts here are corrupt. Because of that, I saw all kinds of things that were just unbelievable. I have in my case judges breaking the law all over the place. So I learned how the system really worked here through that whole experience. And what I figured out was I need to take it outside the system. And what I mean by that is I need to get it away from the lawyers and the judges and get it to the people, the issues to the people who really have the power. They don't realize it because they're always being told, oh, get a lawyer, stay within the system. The judge is always right. The judge doesn't do anything or break the law or anything of the sort. And I witnessed over and over things happening in court that were just disgusting. And I realized in my case early on that they had no claim whatsoever on my property. $200,000 on a $3.5 million house, you have no claim. So I just basically started going through stuff and basically cornering each judge that came across and letting him screw up on his own. Because of that, I got to the place where I basically have them all on the record for doing things that they're guilty of. And I filed what's known as a motion for capias, which is an arrest. That's an arrest of somebody. That's the
By
motion.
judicial marshals, correct?
What?
That arrest would proceed by way of judicial marshal. That's a civil capias you're referring to, right?
Well, no, actually, when I filed my motion for capias, in my case, it was a criminal offense because they were felonies. For example, misprision of felony, U.S. Code 4. And also, in my particular case, there's mortgage fraud that the note had been sold multiple times. As you can imagine, my house, a mortgage of $200,000 on a $3.5 million house is AAA paper. And so they would use that paper and sell it over and over and over again to underwrite other things across the street. What happened and how I got into this particular situation is I called the bank to pay it off and they didn't know where it was. So I said, I'm not paying it off. You guys tell me where it is. The next thing you know, I'm getting hit with a foreclosure. I go, oh, no. Please keep in mind, I only had a year and a half left on my mortgage. It was a 15-year mortgage that I just did for credit reasons. I don't carry any debt. So I just sat there and I said, wow. And I watched what happened to different people within the court where the attorneys didn't even defend their clients and judges just making rulings on pieces of paper that were complete garbage and were clearly fraud. And as I kept watching this, I just said, wow, this is out of control. How does this system work? So I looked deeper and deeper into it and I realized the judges are corrupt. They believe that they have absolute immunity, even though they just have judicial immunity. The lawyers run around with what's known as litigation privilege, which effectively means they're immune. And I said, okay, so really what you've got to do is you can't go to any of their self-governing institutions like the Judicial Review Committee or the bar, as they say, because that's no different than like when, let's say, Bobby gets drunk at the club and grabs Jimmy's wife's rear end or something, and they go, okay, you're going to the board of the club. And they go and Bobby gets in front of the board and they go, listen, you got to slow down on the drinking. You got to stop this stuff. You can't come to the club for 3 months. Okay? Don't do it again. Slap on the wrist. See you. We'll see you next time. But that was pretty funny that you did that. And it's on its way. I wanted to tell you that, but I want to give you some real hard facts on some things that are out there. Currently in the state of Connecticut, there's a story going around. You can look it up on a judge named Judge Alice Bruno. She has not worked for the last 2 years. She was brought up before the Judicial Review Committee. She's been paid over $350,000. The Judicial Review Committee, one of their approximately 240 judges in this state, has not worked for 2 years, and they haven't even done anything about it. Nothing.
Yeah, I seen this story break almost at least a year ago, and still to date, nothing has been done about it. It's absolutely asinine. You and I have a lot of common ground in regard to what we've seen. Just in my own family court case, I have so much common ground with you and can relate to the sheer corruption that I'm witnessing. The judges don't even follow their own rules.
So let's just go through a couple of things, and then because I really want to get to really focusing on Sam, okay, and to explain how I got here and learn different things.
The floor is yours.
There's a news story out right now about our chief state's attorney, Richard Colangelo Jr., who's just guilty of everything, for crying out loud. He's so corrupt, it's not even funny. I'd also like to refer some people. Yes, John.
I've sued Richard Colangelo 6 times. 5 times he got immunity for money laundering, and the 6th time he got immunity for destroying evidence in a murder. So we sued him in FST CV 20-502-3122-S in the Stamford Superior Court. And the governor made up a story about him hiring a woman that influenced his own salary, which is a total crock of crap, because what actually happened here is a boy was tasered on 10/23/2019 at 1:30 in the morning by 6 cops. And 21 showed up 4 hours later and staged the body cam evidence of the murder of Stephen Barrier. The problem here is it's too complicated to express. I mean, let's get back to what happened to Mr. Pritchard. Everything he has said, I can confirm.
Let me
just mention a few things. He's involved in a court case where the same judge being accused of misconduct ruled on his own motions when he should have recused himself. Here I am saying, hi, I've filed 60 unanswered judicial misconduct claims with the Bar Association and the Judicial Review Council. None of them have ever been heard. None of them have ever been answered. And I started 20 years ago. So when you look at the 32 Bar Association complaints I have filed myself, 10 of those attorneys claim to be my attorney that I don't know, who cashed stolen checks. Now, Mr. Pritchard lost his house having a fictitious mortgage printed. We've interviewed 53 similar stories, no mortgage, foreclosure. One gentleman had 2 houses stolen. Why? Over a water bill on his mom's account after she passed away, and the judges wouldn't clean up the probate and wouldn't allow him to pay his own mother's water bill. Then they stole 75 grand from him. And the story gets worse when you talk to other people in Mr. Pritchard in his situation where, for example, one woman we interviewed, her family got 300 acres from Samuel Adams, which had a dam on the property, a grist mill. The state wanted the rights to collect hydro. They put promissory notes on her house, which appeared out of nowhere. None of them are signed. They're not legal documents. They don't trace back to her or her family. They don't know where they came from. So here we go. Mr. Pritchard has a fictitious mortgage on his house that was resold, I think, 4 times to the tune of 200 grand, which is clearly not a valid document. And like I said, interviewing 53 people in a row with a similar story, many of them point to Cazenovia Creek, okay? Many of them point to Judge Spader. There are other judges involved, mainly 16 by my count. But
now, before we give the floor back to Mr. Pritchard here, I do got to introduce Mr. Kevin Allen. It is a great pleasure to have you join us this evening. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us.
No, thank you. And I'm just going to listen and give back. I'll definitely jump. I apologize. Finished up my first show. Andrew, you were talking, and Johnny Flynn is known to take the microphone. So you should have that kill button over there, Johnny Flynn.
We
Stand
are
and
going
deliver.
to try to keep a strict format tonight. I
was
did
trying
talk
to
with
give-
John.
I was
You got to get a zap button on John Flynn, believe
saying
me.
that there are Judge Kremrich, Gennario. Spader is the one who we have a lot of information on. The next case that Mr. Pritchard's going to talk about is about Judge White. We can put the document on the screen, and I want him to clearly explain about the 25th Amendment, if you wouldn't mind, Andrew, and then explain how we got in this predicament after, for example, in 2014, right, when Joe Visconti told the Supreme Court of the state of Connecticut about the mortgage foreclosures of Ed Marcus Law Group, right?
Well,
Go ahead.
It's
complicated, but they need the background.
I want to give a little bit more in terms of some understanding of how I built to this corruption, and basically the Superior Court in Stamford, Connecticut is a racketeering enterprise. I cannot make a statement beyond that, but I have 15 judges and also other complicit participants that it's quite clear that it is a giant racketeering enterprise. It's not, and those things have happened firsthand right in front of me. My court docket demonstrates it fully. But anyway, I want to explain how all of a sudden I started to realize how this system works. Please understand that on Wall Street, Wall Street is a cutthroat, self-regulated place. And within that, you learn about the street, how it really operates, how people can be bought and sold, how the regulators, the SEC regulators, when they retire, all of a sudden they find themselves with a pretty nice job at Goldman Sachs or some other place, even though they never go to the office, things of that sort. Anyway, so I started to look into this, how the whole judicial system works, and some of the stuff I found, I just highlight with some recent news articles and some older news articles, just so people can look them up and they can see for themselves. The Wall Street Journal on July 28th, 2021, put out a news story. 131 federal judges failed to recuse themselves from 685 lawsuits from 2010 to 2018, where they had a financial interest. So that's 131 federal judges. Now, somebody say to you, well, so that's not that many, how many judges are there? There's approximately 1,700 federal judges, okay, carrying judicial immunity, okay, which is a very serious thing. It's like being a king. It's a modern day king, okay? So that effectively represents 8%. In other words, they caught 8%. Okay. Now everyone knows if you're catching 8, there's at least double that, triple that have been playing this game. And
great point.
Here's the other thing. These are judges that have a code of honor and an oath to uphold the Constitution. They know when their other fellow judges are doing this, and they're not blowing the whistle because they're part of the judge club, right? Now, from there, all of a sudden, I start digging some more, and I go, how did our courts come about here in Connecticut? And one of the things I found really interesting was, did you know that our appellate court wasn't established until 1983? And the reason it was established is because there was such a backlog at the Supreme Court. Because, see, when you had a problem in the Superior Court, you went to the Supreme Court and worked out that issue. Now, why was there such a backlog? Well, because in 1983, basically, they were doing all kinds of criminal acts then and created this huge backlog because everybody wanted. And guess how the appellate court got formed? They basically took judges from the Superior Court and put them through a rotation from the Superior Court to the appellate. So they're the same boys ruling on the same stuff. Now, why did I go look at that? Okay, in my particular case, a thing called summary judgment. Summary judgment. This is a moment in which all the discovery is done. So both sides have found everything, all their evidence, and they get together to make the ruling. Okay. In my particular case, okay, I had a court order from a judge to compel, to make the other side give me evidence, okay, that they weren't turning over. I had a court order. The day they did this was on September 11th. I give you that date because I went before a guy named Judge Randolph. Judge Randolph, I turned to him and I said, Randolph, this is a very difficult day for me, September 11th, because I was a partner at Cantor Fitzgerald when 9/11 occurred, sir. As you can see, I held up my phone. I said, my phone is blowing up. This is a day where I actually have to listen to a lot of people pour their heart out, okay? Because of friends of mine who died, because of, people that have survived, all kinds of things. It's insane, okay? Now, I say to Judge Randolph, Your Honor, there's an open court order for discovery, so we can't have summary judgment. And then on top of that, I'm due back in court on the 18th. Can't we take this issue up then? He goes, no, and rules on summary judgment and says, nope, you lose, you're out. Boom. I go to the appellate court. I'm one of two people that year who are pro se that make it to the appellate court because it's a ridiculous routine to get in there. You got to have blue copies. You got to have certain spacing. It basically cost me $3,500 just in printing to get in there, which is a joke. Okay. I get in there. The attorney on the other side lies and says that he's delivered all the stuff. He doesn't even, this is the best part. He doesn't even satisfy the motion to compel until a year after the appeal. And I go back to the appellate and say, he just finally complied. And they still ruled against me with no explanation, nothing, doesn't matter. And I go, oh my gosh, this is a total rigged game because this is as simple as black and white. So that's why I started looking in how's the system built and everything else. And I said, wow, this is bad. And then I learned about litigation privilege with the attorneys. And that led me to some other stories. There's a really good, famous story out that Reuters put out, and it talks about judges. It was put out June 30th, 2020. And it's thousands of judges who broke the laws and oaths remain on the bench. And they basically went through 1,509 cases. And they just basically 9 out of every 10 judge, no matter what, nothing even happens to them and they get off. I mean, just to read it, you would go, oh my God, what is going on with our legal system, right? So basically the self-regulatory system, in other words, the bar and the judicial review committees are an absolute farce. And this is happening across the country, okay? It's happening across the country.
I've come to that same conclusion with just a fraction of the information you have shared. Based on my own experience in the last 2 years, I've drawn the very same conclusions. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It is black and white. I mean, if it was simple for me to look up the sections that were referred to in my documentation from the court to the Connecticut practice book. I look up the sections in the Connecticut practice book. I start familiarizing myself with all the rules and the process, and I can clearly see they're breaking their own rules. And to try and rely on the Judicial Review Council is like asking the person who just robbed you to investigate himself and give you the money back. I haven't had any faith or any sort of hope whatsoever in seeking any sort of legal recourse, especially not as a pro se litigant. And it leaves me in a place, I'm between a rock and a hard place, and my daughter's life is literally in grave danger every single day. The state knows it. Everybody I know knows it. Everybody who knows my ex knows it. And the court just, like you said, it doesn't matter what is solid, tangible evidence and irrefutable or not. They just rule based on their own whims. It depends on what side of the bed the judge woke up on that day, or Maybe there's money involved. There's got to be some sort of, maybe it is a racket. It certainly seems to be a racket. Why would people allow what's happening to my daughter to happen if there wasn't some sort of financial interest involved, some sort of relationship between the judges and the lawyers? I mean, for one example, in my own case, the judge, Barry Armada, has a criminal conflict of interest with the plaintiff's lawyer, Matthew Potter, who works for the very same law firm that the judge used to work for.
Yes. No, everybody's got this. John?
Yeah, I just want to mention, I've dealt with Ethan Book for, I don't know, 10 years. He's a pro se litigator who's run into the same problems, that Tim ran into, that Andrew's running into. And there are many. Actually, think about this. If I filed 350 cases, which I have, how come I've never gotten a subpoena, never been allowed to depose anyone, never got an answered articulation, never got approved witnesses to testify? I have 10 cases where no 911 calls were allowed to be played to a jury. Luckily, they allow the juries in the 90s and the 2000 to 2010. But if you look now, there hasn't been a jury trial since March 2020 in the state of Connecticut. There's 31 murder trials on hold just in Stamford Superior Court. So when you say, hey, the three of us are pro se litigators, right? Look at Lori Hopkins Kavanaugh. She's getting absolutely crucified as a pro se litigator. The lucky part is now that Andrew's come to the party, I think we should switch to the Sam case just because.
I'd like to give Kevin Allen a moment just to kind of comment on anything we've been discussing so far. I know you're aware of some of these issues to some degree. If there's any sort of comment you'd like to make, now would be a good time to share your thoughts and opinions and things.
Thank you again, Tim. And thanks again. Apologize for coming on late and listening. I learned so much listening to you guys and having the experience of lawmaking in Connecticut doesn't make me actually any more qualified on these conversations. We might differ. I think this panel and I have probably had many a times where we differ on a lot of opinions. But the one thing I tell you that I've learned from you, Tim, and John and Andrew, nice to meet you, by the way. It's truly an honor. Is that I don't really necessarily have to agree with everyone to have a really good conversation to learn something. Mm-hmm. And so I've learned from John, for example, when I had him on my show, he went into it. Is it okay if I just, I'll tell you, John was referred to as the Alex Jones of Connecticut when he came on my show because he rattles off so much information. And by the way, everything is fact. It's like John doesn't release something out of his mouth unless it's something he knows what he's speaking on. And Tim, much like you, it's interesting though because I'm hearing a commonality. A real question of the judicial system. And I don't honestly think this is a mistake by the judicial system. I don't think it's a mistake by our elected officials that partner a lot of times with the lawmaking and the lawmakers, and those who enforce the law have been in bed with each other since the inception of this country. So I feel like this is just now hitting a head in the country because, quite honestly, Tim, your kind of people, and I say that with all due respect, exposing some things. And, I'm a pro law enforcement. I'm on law enforcement today. I'm always going to support law enforcement 100%. We have those great, healthy conversations. But I also know that there's questions that need to be asked sometimes. And, I think that's what's happening here. And I'm going to sit back and listen again to this dialogue and bring me in anytime you want. I'm here with you guys all night.
Kevin, let me ask you a question. Of course, sure. On the surface, everybody wants qualified immunity, right?
Yep.
Okay, but hold on a second. When you look back at the cases I've encountered, right, yep, which are different, not your normal case. I mean, cops that falsify body cam evidence should go to jail, especially if they're framing someone. So when you look at the facts that Andrew's bringing up, the one that's really outstanding is that the judges have absolute immunity. So what good is qualified immunity if they overturn, in other words, refuse you to show your exculpatory evidence to the jury, which happens all day, every day. So here you go. In cases I encountered, right, the judge had a special master. Mine was finance related, okay? The judge's special master was Bernie Madoff's attorney. I sued Bernie Madoff. The special master was Bernie Madoff's attorney. How can you get anywhere if they agree to block every single bank statement you reference in your trial? When you're trying to predict or prove what the damages are, if they don't admit the financial statements, what do? You sit there saying, hi, I'm a cop. The guy reached for his weapon. What if they didn't allow you the body cam evidence from the console of your car when you're questioning an illegal alien who shouldn't be carrying a gun in the first place, or whatever the circumstance might be? I'm just saying, I want everyone to understand that, everyone's, banging the drum, qualified immunity. Well, you know what? In the experiences that I've had, you could throw it all out the window if the judge is corrupt.
Yep. I want to get back here to this. I want to keep going on with the storyline here, because I want to get to the turn where we are talking about the law. And I am talking about the law. I'm
Right.
talking about the true law, going back to the Constitution, everything. Okay. Staying within the framework and the checks and balances that we have, and not being sold on the propaganda that has been put together by lawyers and judges and the whole judiciary, and the game that's played, that's basically become a big, here in Connecticut, or corrupt-a-cut, and I didn't come up with that name. A newspaper article came up with it in the Hartford Current. Corrupt-a-cut, and its multiple dirty governors and everything else has created a situation that needs to be put in check. And I'd like to make that turn with this, and then I want to really hammer home what's happening to Sam. Okay, because Sam's the man, all right? And he's a hero, and people don't really realize it. But what I'd like to do is, I want to read to you Connecticut General Statute Section 125. It's called Forms of Oaths. Now, this is the oath that a judge reads when he takes office. You do solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Connecticut, so long as you continue a citizen thereof, and that you will faithfully discharge, according to the law, the duties of the office of the best and to the best of your abilities, so help you God. That's the judge's oath. Okay? Now let me read you the oath for an attorney. This is a little bit of an eye-opener, so get ready. For attorneys, you solemnly swear and sincerely affirm, as the case may be, that you will do nothing dishonest and will not knowingly allow anything dishonest to be done in court, and that you will inform the court of any dishonesty of which you have knowledge, that you will not knowingly maintain or assist in maintaining any cause of action that is false or unlawful, that you will not obstruct any cause of action for personal gain or malice, but that you will exercise the office of the attorney in any court in which you may practice, according to the best of your learning and judgment, faithfully to both your client and the court. So help you God, or upon the penalty of perjury. Now, just to be quick, why would I read those oaths? If you've noticed, the attorneys swear no oath to the Constitution of the U.S. or of the state. They don't have anything to do with it. And I find that a problem. That in itself says, well, who are these guys? Right?
Yeah, that's a huge red flag in my book. Good point.
That's a big no-no. Okay? So what really happened to me was, once I saw all these things, these like building blocks, foundational pieces, I said, wait a minute. We got to get outside the system. We have guys that swear no allegiance to the Constitution and in any way, and they're a big part of the system. Now let's also understand something. And I'm not trying to be mean. I'm trying to be factual. If you run into a lawyer, any lawyer, Just ask them real quick, why'd you go to law school? I wanted to make some money. That's what they say every time. And you chuckle and they chuckle back and yeah, okay. And then what you realize is lawyers are like a worse form of real estate broker. Okay. Real estate brokers aren't really that concerned about the price of the house. They're more concerned about getting the transaction. Because we keep doing transactions, I keep making bank. Same thing with a lawyer. I keep making bank. Just get in there and cause some problems, spend some time until we eat up some money, and we're making bank. Now, one of the keys to all this is you got to keep the ringmaster happy. That's the judge. So when you have a case and you really should win the case, and guess what? The judge just drops all kinds of hints to the lawyer and basically says, look, we're going to take this to the middle ground. Okay. And basically you don't win the case. You kind of, maybe it's more slanted your way than not. And guess what? If your attorney doesn't play nice with this judge, he's going to pay for it down the road. You won't be in court. You're out. Just like when you transacted that home with the broker who sold your house too cheap. Right? He's on to the next house. So none of these attorneys are really in a position. And by the way, they're not as powerful as you, the individual in that courtroom. Okay? Because you don't have to answer to the judge. The judge can sit there and threaten you all day long, but the truth is, what are you going to do? You're going to take my job away? You're going to get me in the next case? So when you're speaking the truth and going for it, stand strong on that. Now, with all that, I said, okay, how does this thing all work here? And I always kept having a problem with the fact that we're called the Constitution State. And I asked myself, why are we called the Constitution State? Well, it turns out, and I want to go through a little history here because it's important to understand how everything works. And it's real simple. A guy named Reverend Thomas Hooker, love the name, right? Reverend Thomas Hooker, okay, you can't forget that one with American history, came down from Cambridge, Mass. With a whole flock of his people and joined up with a whole group of other people around West Hartford area, okay? And they put together a document that some people believe, some historians believe, is one of the key pieces that created the U.S. Constitution. In 1638/39, they wrote a document called the Fundamental Orders of 1639, okay? These fundamental orders basically described how power comes from God to man, and then man gives certain authority to individuals to create a government with certain controls in effect within the description of those fundamental orders so that area could operate. And the main reason they set that up to operate that way is so they could do trade with a king of England. And it was one of the first documents where basically they weren't answering to the king. They had set up a separate place onto itself with their own power and own government and everything else, and would do trade with England. Okay? Now here's the key piece. The power comes from God to man. Then man gives the authority to certain individuals within their description. Okay? And then that's how government is formed, right? And we go, as we have it now, we have the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch, right? And each one of those branches, we give the authority. We're the ones with the power. I know people are always talking about we the people, but we are the ones with power. Now, one of the little things that people don't really understand or know is that sheriffs have a ton of power. That's why you've seen on the news, you hear about a guy named Sheriff Mack who brought a big lawsuit. You hear about how there's a sheriff running for governor, I think, in New York now. There's been sheriffs that have blocked certain orders that came down with the mandates and stuff like that were unconstitutional.
Sheriffs were actually disbanded in the state of Connecticut in the early 2000s, and this state is in dire need of a constitutional sheriff.
Let me get there, right? So all the states Of the 50 states in the United States, there's 3 states without sheriffs. It's Alaska and Hawaii, who are the last 2 to join, right? Okay. And then Connecticut. Now, let's look at Connecticut. Connecticut got rid of its sheriffs, which was Section 25 of the Connecticut Constitution. They did a little, trickery where they basically said, oh, we're going to save all kinds of money and we're going to divide the powers of the sheriff into state marshals and judicial marshals, right? And we'll be saving money and stuff, right? Really what they were doing, because they were so crooked, and let me also remind everyone that in the year 2000, our governor was a really clean, squeaky clean guy called Governor Rowland, who only went to jail twice because he was such an honest fellow. Okay, now, here's the thing about sheriffs, okay? Sheriffs can arrest governors, and sheriffs can arrest judges. Sheriffs work for the people, okay? Now, let's also be honest about the real world. There are crooked sheriffs too, right? Because they get bought and paid for and set up and things like that. Yes. But the truth is, the sheriff is supposed to be the check on all this stuff. That's the guy that we are supposed to go to when we see dirty stuff, and he's supposed to go execute.
I'd love to be that guy someday. I
guess
really anticipate kicking off a campaign to be elected.
Tyrant Slayer, you want to know something? You are that guy. That's why I am making the arrests that I'm making.
Andrew,
we are that guy.
Switch
because
to Sam.
I'm sorry, this just blows me up.
I know, but you got to switch to Sam. Go. There's too much time to be spent.
I want to explain the power here.
There.
Last bit. In that year 2000, when they did that, they defined strictly what the powers are to the state marshals, who answers to the governor, and the judicial marshals, who answers to the judges. They defined strictly what those powers are. Those are not the same powers that the sheriffs had. So what happens to those powers that were authorized by us that we gave to the sheriffs? Guess who they go back to?
Us.
Yes.
I did not know that.
What? We are the sheriffs now. We are the sheriffs. We can go make that arrest. I don't have to go see the sheriff to then go make the arrest of the governor, of the judge. No, if I witness the felony firsthand, I can make the arrest. It's that simple. It's not complicated. Now, the main reason I wanted to get on this thing, because I don't really like to do these sort of things. I'm more of an action person myself. I mean, I don't like to talk about it. I like to go do it, okay? And when I feel I've got the right move and the right place and the solution, I go at it, okay? And I've had success with many things where people are like, you're out of your mind. It'll never happen, okay? I witnessed...
Start with Roguetown, dude. Start with Roguetown.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let me read. There's a book, a famous book that came out, and it's named Roguetown. And it's a book that was written about a Stanford advocate reporter, a young reporter named Anthony Dolan. Anthony Dolan in 1985 won a Pulitzer Prize for a 75-part series on municipal corruption. And that was in Stamford, Connecticut. So let me read this to you. This is the Amazon description of the book. And it's just, it's like 3 paragraphs, but it's good to read to get you right so you understand. Roguetown by Dennis M. Griffin and Vito, get this name because it's important, Vito Colucci Jr., who's one of the people being named by Sam, by the way, is the true story of Stamford, Connecticut. A city from 1965 through 1985 was under the stranglehold of organized crime and run by corrupt officials. It was known as one of the most corrupt cities in the country. Disgusted by what was happening in his hometown, Stamford police officer Vito Colucci vowed he would do whatever it took to bring the corruption to light. It was a decision that eventually placed him in an undercover role, wearing a wire to gather evidence against senior officers in the Stamford Police Department, and nearly cost him his life. When the dust settled, serious wrongdoing in the 8 city departments was exposed, including the police department, where a rackets commander was taking $1,800 a week from the Gambino crime family, and a detective sergeant was running the largest drug ring in southern Connecticut out of police headquarters. 15 city and state officials resigned or were fired. Police officers, other officials, and organized crime figures were indicted and convicted. And a young reporter from the Stamford Advocate named Anthony Dolan won the Pulitzer Prize. However, what happened in Stamford, Connecticut reverberated far beyond the city and state. It served as a catalyst for President Ronald Reagan's initiative against American mafia and the establishment of the President Commission on Organized Crime. I'll just leave it there. That's Roguetown. That was 1985. Now let's talk about Sam. Some of the names that are in this book, Sam names in his whistleblowing stuff. Sam has the goods on dirty construction contracts, road contracts, all kinds of things in Stamford, Connecticut. And he's an honest, gentle man. Okay? He's a gentle, older, he's like a human teddy bear. Okay? And he's an engineer. He's not dumb. He's very smart, very thorough, because he's an engineer. You know, he needs to have every numbered, perfect, checked, you name it. So when he goes and says something, he gets all the facts together, has it, proves it. Because guess what? He's an A plus B equals C guy. Okay? Sam brought this stuff forward, and they have been after him. In 2019, Judge Hudak, okay, basically said he was mentally incompetent. They do this stunt. This is a judicial weapon. They basically said he's crazy. He's all this, or whatever. We got to throw him in the rubber room or whatever and lock him up. They did that.
Court, in my family court case, they were even trying to steer things in that direction, and I totally put the stop on it I just tore the GAL to shreds in her whole narrative, and I ultimately was able to stop it and get the GAL fired or terminated from the case as a pro se litigant, which is an accomplishment unto itself. But I digress.
Bravo. Yes, John.
I just want to mention that Sam is my age, and many of the cops that I went to high school with, he's been friends with for years and years, okay? He grew up through the ranks in the Public Works Department and the Planning and Zoning of Stamford. He started recognizing buildings being built with no mortar. He started recognizing structures that have fallen due to noncompliance with basic, not local law 10, but building constraints in the public, statutes of buildings. So here behind me is a picture of Sam. Okay. Sorry. Right here. I'm not sure if you can see it, but Sam gives me all these types of signs. If you drive to his house, he's kind of a nut. He calls out in 130 YouTube videos all types of murder evidence, cops that shot their girlfriend, all types of incidents with audio, video of him confronting the police saying, why haven't you acted on the evidence I gave you? And they say, I want nothing to do with you. So when you look at the facts here, folks, Sam is a whistleblower, okay, I wouldn't say he's beyond the fault. In other words, he's got a religious belief that he needs to be a truth teller, and then he needs to expose various corruption that is at the heart of the Roguetown book, which Andrew was talking about. And if you look at the book, nothing's changed since 1985.
No, that kind of level of crime does not stop. It goes on. They
just rework the process of it. They just do it cleaner this time.
Yeah.
There are confidential informants shaking down cops for bribes. The cops in return. There are murders. There's so much evidence in the book, and those are the real names, the real life people. Officer Ledestro, okay, he was the father of a girl in my class. When the book came out, we all looked at her like, excuse me, your dad's in this book. Is half this stuff true? It turned out everything was true. That cops were paying kickbacks, that drug lords were paying cops to get protection. And when you look at various murders that have occurred since then, it's absolutely true. So here you go. Being a whistleblower should provide you with protection.
Right. So,
however, not
so Sam's this whistleblower. I want to get back onto Sam here because Sam's this whistleblower, and we all understand. One of the things that's interesting is there weren't a lot of judges that went down. All the judges knew this stuff was going on. Okay, this stuff has been continued and passed on down, and there's a whole system here. You don't become a huge connection with the Gambino crime family and everything else where you don't have a way of watering things down or hiding something or putting something in the back shelf or under the rug. I mean, it just continues on, right? So here's what happened with Sam. So in 2019, around 2019, a Judge Hudock, Hudock, I think is how you spell his name, basically said, oh, you're incompetent. We got to lock you up, put you in a rubber room. The whole thing, you got to do the competency test and everything else. Now, Sam fell right into that trap, okay, because that's a setup. They have it all rigged and everything else. And you really will not survive the tests, right, and stuff. They'll like do something. But here's what's amazing. Sam went in, spent time there, basically played a lot of poker with the guys that were there and stuff. They all fell in love with Sam because you can't help it. He's like a little teddy bear. He loves everybody. And they basically said, oh, this guy's sharp, competent, everything else signed off. He's completely competent, nothing, no problem with Sam. Okay? So he gets released, papers all signed off, everything. I'm fine, nothing. There's no issues. He basically, when that happens, you're supposed to immediately get cleared. The judge has to clear you. The judge did not clear him, Judge Hudock. Let's see, he got locked up on March 8th. It was about a week before that, so say around the 1st.
Andrew, read the parts of the document. I'll scroll down that the people need to understand because you got to give them the framework of the document.
Well, he's almost getting us up to present day. We're a week away from March 8th. Let's let him finish, walk through the timeline, and then we'll get to the document.
The reason is on March 1st or whatever date that was, we all went to court to support Sam just because he was in court and he wanted to represent himself. And he was before Judge Hudock again. Judge Hudock went into this tirade with this state assistant attorney, Michael Nemec, that basically like, oh, well, you were supposed to be at another competency hearing and all this. And like Sam's like, I'm here to clear my competency hearing. You're supposed to release me automatically. I shouldn't even have to be here, basically. And the judge just slammed it down, basically kicked him out of there. A week later, we go back to court again. And Sam thinks, okay, he's going to clear himself.
Yeah, this is where I got involved. This is where he's arrested. He shows up for clearance and he's arrested by judicial marshal. He's been detained ever since.
Yes.
He's only had one hearing since. We did attend that hearing. I did record that hearing. We will play that hearing here at Tyrant Slayer Studios eventually, but
we have a recording.
We're almost present day now, so let's continue on. Andrew, you still have the floor.
So I just wanted to read. This is just my little blurb that's also in this piece here of what I witnessed on Stamford Superior Court on March 8th, 2022. I witnessed firsthand a set-up hearing and illegal incarceration of a harmless, gentle man. Judge White has committed felony acts in executing his order. The level of judicial abuse and misconduct strikes at the core of the deprivation of rights. To keep it simple, Sam is a whistleblower who has the real stuff on these dirty bastards. The proof is how far and extreme they have abused this man by the judicial weaponized misconduct. His bail is higher than most hard criminals. Please keep in mind, Sam represents no harm to himself or his community. Sam was wrongfully incarcerated before and released and cleared. Judge Hudak did that to him the first time and did it again with no explanation. Judge White, working with the complicit participants, locked him up and jacked his bail to $500,000. It was unbelievable to watch. It was unbelievable to see. What we filed in court to get Sam out, which is what the document is that is up there, is a capias, which is an arrest, okay? And it says this: the following signed sui juris, that means it's competent private persons, witnessed
Scroll up, John.
and now execute a citizen's arrest, which is Connecticut General Statute 54170, in compliance with CGS 53A 22G of Judge Gary J. White and State Assistant Attorney Michael Nemec for criminal and civil charges for the willful violation of Title 18, U.S.C. Section 242, deprivation of rights under the color of law, and CGS 53A 92, kidnapping as to the illegal imprisonment of Samuel A. Magliari Jr. on March 8, 2022 at Stamford Superior Court. And then the charges, I'll read the charges. Judge Gary J. White and State Assistant Attorney Michael Nemec willfully disregarded their administrative duty by not recognizing the proof of competency and representation of Samuel A. Magliari Jr. and through the use of force and financial harm, imprisoned Samuel A. Magliari Jr. under protest. This criminal act is a violation of Title 18 U.S.C. Section 242, deprivation of rights under the color of law, and CGS 53A 92, kidnapping. Please note, Mr. Magliari is a whistleblower, CGS 4-61DD, bringing forward corruption throughout the city of Stamford and various departments and agencies, much like the Stamford 1985 Rogue Town criminal enterprise. And under that, I have up there in that capias, you can see what a citizen's arrest is. And I also described the deprivation of rights, so they can't argue that we're not talking about the law. I also post what is the statute for kidnapping, the first degree, which is a felony, which is what allows us to arrest the judges. Other than that, I use case law in support of the capias, which is all Supreme Court stuff. One of the things that I do want to let you know, where we were talking earlier about judicial immunity, it's very important to know that judicial immunity is not absolute immunity, okay? It doesn't mean that a judge can go out and like come over to my house and say, Pritchard, you're a problem, and blow my brains out and get away with it, okay? A judge has an administrative duty. He cannot ignore his administrative duty. If he violates that in any way, he can be charged and so forth and so on. That keeps him from ignoring the law. Yes, John?
Couple things just to bring up. This is Sam's 7th false arrest. Okay, it's not like it's his first rodeo. When you look at the facts, the Sixth Amendment protects you from exorbitant bail. So in other words, a guy named Clemente Guillos was repeatedly raping women, okay? His bail was nowhere near $500,000. Now, he raped a woman in 2000. He raped another woman. And the absurdity of what the court did in this guy's case, if you compare it to Sam, you need to know all the facts. They're repeatedly releasing a known violent rapist. Okay. However, the bail for Sam is far higher. The same judge,
Right. That's what
Judge
makes it
Spader,
possible to.
Judge Spader, is involved in many different but similar cases. And you know what the judge did in the case where there was the repeated rapist? They put a restraining order against the rapist, alerting him not to kill the rape victim's cat. Now, there's a lot of factors with that case that have similar connections to what is happening to Sam, but it's the inverse. It's, hi, there's a guy who deserves the $500,000 bond. Okay, look at the prosecutorial misconduct across the country. You look at Kim Foxx. She's involved with, the guy who faked the hangman noose hate crime, Smollett. Smollett served 3 days, okay, after his conviction. He made a campaign contribution to Kim Foxx of $1,000, denied knowing her. Here we go. I'm talking about prosecutorial misconduct. Because what we have here is Nemec refused Sam his exculpatory evidence, everything in the file that connected, the prosecutor to get probable cause to make an arrest. There's no probable cause here. And this is happening time and time again. More often in Norwalk than in Stamford, but there are cases, if you look, chokehold victims, neck broken by a cop, no probable cause, the entire arrest with the body cam evidence. There are 5 cops yelling, the guy's not resisting. Leave him alone. He's not resisting. He's not resisting. They go and take him to internal affairs where they produce a video that is edited. So what's happening here is when you try to argue a case like this, where the evidence was denied to Sam to make his own defense when he's claiming he wants to represent himself, then they say, you have to prove your competency, which he just did, that they don't recognize. What they're trying to do is preventing Sam from having any representation at all. Right now, he has Benjamin Aponte, a court-appointed attorney who doesn't take his call, doesn't return his call. So how is he being represented by the, public defender?
You'd think he'd have a lawsuit for inadequate representation.
This case, let me finish. Sam has a heart condition, denied his heart medication. He has sleep apnea. He needs his, CPAP, breathing apparatus, to sleep. He has a swollen epiglottis now. In other words, he snores. He needs pressurized lungs. He's supposed to be on an aspirin regimen due to his heart condition.
They're killing him in there.
Hold on, I'm saying that I've called that attorney 3 times myself, no callback. What I'm saying is that the judge denied him his right to represent himself when in fact he was cleared. For the judge in this case, Andrew will testify, on the second go-around, which we went to, the judge maintained, which is recorded, that he gave Sam ample opportunity to get retested with his psychiatric evaluation, when in fact, that's not true at all. Sam was notified once. Sam said, I don't want to go without an attorney. These complicated problems I'm about to announce, everybody in the courtroom knows, Sam put up $35,000 for an attorney, okay? They did nothing. The judge, then Sam gave $15,000 to an attorney to represent him. The money's gone. The guy did nothing. Then Sam gave $20,000. The judge, Hudick, ordered that attorney, asked the judge to release him from his obligation after he took Sam's $20,000. And he kept the $20,000. And the judge said, okay, you're off. So here we go. The judge allowed Sam to pay $35,000 for no representation, none whatsoever. Then, when you get back to the nitty-gritty, White refused Sam an attorney all along the process after the two were released, and in the courtroom in front of us denied him counsel and denied Sam the right to
But-
represent himself.
But this is wait, time out. This is the most important piece right here, where you guys are, what we're talking about, that's so important and so subtle for everybody to notice. Okay? You see how everybody keeps going back to like Sam getting representation, or that the court even appointed a guy representation? Guess what? This representation thing, the judges control. They control those lawyers through their employment. The judges can make that a good lawyer or a bad lawyer because they're lawless as to what they do and how they rule. So if you don't behave right, Mr. Lawyer, in this case, in other words, you don't do the right thing because we want to stick it to Sam, guess what? You're not working in this rogue town court anymore. You're done. Your career's over. You might as well get out of Connecticut. Let me give you a personal piece here. I won a $1.25 million lawsuit, one of two people against Cantor Fitzgerald, okay? Only one other person's ever beaten them, okay? The attorney that I won that case with got paid $275,000. I showed him my case that I'm in. I said, am I missing something here, but aren't I right and everything? And he goes, you are 100% right. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you 50% contingency. And you take it the distance. And you know what he said to me? He said, Andy, I love you, okay? And you gave me one of the biggest victories ever, okay? Which helped make my career. I cannot represent you in Connecticut because I'll never be able to work in Connecticut again. That's what he said.
It doesn't surprise me. I think that's part of the reason why I've found it so agonizing and difficult to find representation in my family court case, just because of all the egregious judicial misconduct, criminal judicial misconduct that I briefed these people on while expressing what the problem is.
And that's why, now let's get back to Sam's case. In Sam's case, that day when they arrested him, he didn't even get to represent himself. On top of that, the judge increased his bail from his bail money from $350,000 to $500,000. And he's not getting out until May 10th. And like, they not only did they arrest him, they physically did the whole intimidation thing. There were 8 marshals that came into the court. 2 big ones get behind Sam. Sam comes up to to here on my chest. He's like a little, he's a teddy bear. Okay? And he loves everybody. You're like, what is going on? And by the way, there's no flight risk with Sam. Sam is out in front of the courthouse with his signs there every day. As a matter of fact, you can have Sam in court every single day. He'll be there with his sign saying guilty, 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 guilty. He hasn't left anywhere. He owns 3 homes or 3 properties in Stamford, Connecticut. His whole life is Stamford, Connecticut. It's like, what are you talking about? Where are you going with this? And by the way, Sam's been in the public all the time. Doesn't hurt anybody, doesn't harm a flea, and actually helps people. And even brings over a bottle of wine every now and then to John's house, for crying out loud. Right, John?
Question.
Yes.
Well, first I want to point out something that most people may not know. The 6th Amendment protects you from punishment by raising your bail. In other words, beyond a reasonable measure. So when Judge White raised his bail to force him as punishment to go in for the 2nd mental evaluation, what we all thought at the time after just witnessing it is that they want another crack at him to medicate him, as if they intend from the get-go, okay? By the way, forcing someone for medical evaluation, if he is disabled, question, if he is disabled, everything we're talking about violates ADA law, period. You can't force a disabled person take their 6th Amendment right away by giving them a punitive bail, which they have no ability to pay. So when you look at the facts here, the judge just committed a constitutional violation either way. If Sam's not crazy, he violated his constitutional right. If Sam is crazy, you can throw 30 more laws that he just broke against this guy. So the question is, will this backfire on Judge White when they force his second eval and they find him incompetent? They don't want Sam to get on the stand, get a jury, and describe to a jury the videos he provided to Richard Colangelo, who's going to get indicted for bribery soon. He was supposed to be arrested last Labor Day. I can bank on this. I'm getting briefed by the FBI now twice a month. It's not the FBI, actually. It's higher than that. So when you look at the facts, they're watching this video. I can guarantee you that, because of the Highlander and other reasons. When I say that a judge just violated a Sixth Amendment right, that's the minimum, folks. If Sam is found incompetent, the judge will say, I gave him 2 opportunities, which is completely false. He gave him 1. Sam didn't want to go to the evaluation without an attorney. I don't blame him, knowing what I've seen in the 130 videos. I watched every video, folks. It's on YouTube. They're on YouTube now, and some of them are alarming. And by the way, I mean, the cops in question are not clean.
We need to, like, now keep this really simple, right? It's this simple. Sam's a whistleblower. They pulled the competency stunt on him the first time, okay? And it blew up. They threw everything they have at him, and it blew up on him. And he got cleared. By law, he's cleared. The judge has not signed off that he's cleared.
Listen, as egregious and as serious as all of these legal issues are, and the violations of the Constitution and everything we've kind of discussed, one thing I think we really need to spend a little more time on before we wrap up things this evening is Sam's health. Yeah. This man is being killed while he is in prison.
Yes.
He might be liable to suffocate tonight while he's trying to sleep because he doesn't have the proper medications and the proper breathing apparatus or medical equipment facilitated by our officials to be, administered to him when he needs it. And I think it's incumbent upon us, anybody here in the audience, especially us 4 right here, we are some bright minds. We are eager to try and acquire justice for this man and to expose tyranny and all the great things we're involved in. But I think with all of that, it's our responsibility to do everything we can and put our heads together to find a very immediate way to help him and his health. He's not going to make it until May if we can't do something for him.
I agree with you 100%, which is exactly why, and this, I'm sorry for getting jacked up and passionate, and I don't normally do these things, but this is why I immediately got together and got some of the people that were there with us and thank John Flynn. And here's an endorsement for John Flynn, Senator John Flynn, for, candidate. This guy does it. He doesn't talk it. He does it. He showed up there. He witnessed the event. He saw the whole thing. And along with several other people, we filed the capias, the arrest of the judges, which you see. We took it into court. Hold on a second, John.
Go.
We took it into court. We filed it. They brought in all kinds of marshals following us around. We tried to give it to the state attorney, who's also under arrest, state attorney Michael Nemec. He wouldn't even take it. He goes like this. We start getting threatened by the state marshals. I have learned and heard, that they're not doing anything with what we filed. They have to. No, wait. Just so you know, I want to read this so everybody understands, like, we're not fools here. This is the real deal. It's this simple. Connecticut General Statute 54-170, arrest without warrant. The arrest of a person may be lawfully made by any peace officer or a private person without a warrant upon reasonable information that the accused stands charged in the courts of a state with a crime punishable by death or imprisonment for a term exceeding 1 year, a felony, basically. But when so arrested, the accused shall be taken before such a judge with all practicable speed, and complaint shall be made against him under oath, setting forth the ground for the arrest as in section 54-169. And thereafter his answer shall be heard as if he has been arrested on a warrant. So, in other words, when we filed this thing, okay, they have to take us in front of a judge, like at least within the next day. They're delaying everything. So right now, their administrative duty, you understand? Not their abs, not this judicial immunity, their administrative duty, they are breaking. They're breaking their oath, their duty. This is a no-brainer. I'm sorry. This is Law 101, Judge. Law 101, judges. And guess what? If you're a judge and you're being falsely accused, wouldn't you want to get those people right in front of another judge? This whole thing is so absurd. And let's understand, on March 8th, to keep it simple, there was zero. If Sam's incompetent, there was no representation and he was arrested and taken away. Correct. If he's incompetent, then you can hear his argument. If not, he had nothing and you just arrested him for no reason. He's no harm, no threat, nothing. He was there the week before. He'll be there the next week. He's not running away from it. There's no flight.
Now, let me ask this. Has it been established through the court that he's in contempt of a court order? Has there been a contempt founded by the court? That
no.
Basically, yes.
No.
Or is it not? They can talk about contempt, but has he been ruled in contempt by the court?
No, that's the point. He hasn't.
That's why this is wrong.
Yes, all of the above. Yes.
They did the same thing to me. I was never found in contempt, but they started rifling off orders as if I was found in contempt.
No, they just make up the laws they see fit. And these guys, not okay. It's not okay.
Let me say something. You know, when you look at the case, Andrew and the group, Heather, phenomenal. You know, we stood our ground and we were vastly outnumbered and we talked them down. They wanted nothing to do with us in the end. And they were really singing a different tune. But what's important is Nemec told me, okay, take it to the Stamford police. So I did. I took the capias to the Stamford police, talked to the chief secretary, a detective, a bunch of people. They all denied the power to arrest the judge, okay, which is fine. Then we took it to the Bridgeport State Police, who actually have jurisdiction over the court, and we recorded it, and they laughed. Now, here we are. This is leading up to a question to Andrew. Now, Andrew, how many times have you gone to the judicial marshal with the writ where they refuse to act upon it? And does that make him a
complicit participant?
Yeah.
Yeah, they all are. They've said they're all complicit, but they're all controlled and owned by the judges. So I wouldn't expect anything less. We've seen all the illegal activity of the clerks and everything else. There's many, many things where basically their administrative duty has been violated. So they do not have judicial immunity. They do not have the protection anymore. So they need to be sued or arrested and so forth and so on. Now, there's one other thing I'd like to leave you guys with, just to, I know that this is getting sort of long in the tooth and stuff. This is pretty simple. Sam's a whistleblower. They're trying to make him look like a nutcase. He's been locked up with absolutely zero representation. He's not allowed to represent himself. And guess what? You don't want any of these attorneys that they appoint anyway, because look how hard the public defender guy is. He's not even getting anything to him. I mean, it's an absolute joke. This is a harmless guy that attorney should have said in 2 seconds, $500,000 bail for a guy that's here every day with his truck out front with signs? Are you kidding me? Well, Judge, you got to throw. I mean, this is an embarrassment. Like, just out of, it's just grotesque.
It seems to be absolutely malicious retaliation. An effort to stifle dissent, to cover up all of the misconduct, and
Oh yeah.
it absolutely seems to be irrefutable to me. And I would assume that anyone with two brain cells to rub together can come to draw the same conclusions.
So let me coin this phrase. These guys.
Go ahead, John.
Oh, what happened to Andrew?
I don't know.
Edit display name came up. I was going to mention that it seems as though that we're letting them take our due process right. Andrew, can you fix yours?
He's good.
Here.
Okay.
Here.
I lost you for a minute there.
Yeah,
What I'm thinking is that
encryption.
for Connecticut, okay, which is a blue state, obviously, that doesn't follow federal law, okay? Why? Because the governor told the municipalities not to. Now we're in a situation where, hey, the court's not functioning properly, and neither is the prosecutor's office. Keep in mind, there's 6 vacancies in the Bridgeport prosecutor's office. Now Richard Colangelo got the boot, okay, permitted to resign. Well, he's got $1.5 million in cash. I think he'll make it for a while. Maybe he can shift gears. But the real question is here, are we in a lawless society? Are we void of the Constitution in the Constitution state? A. B. What can we do about it? And why doesn't the media cover it? First of all, I want to just reassure you all, this video is going to a white hat, the number 3 guy, okay, who's got 46 people coming to Connecticut to make arrests, according to what I know. And I can't speak about it, but it's being revealed quickly. They're revealing things very quickly about what's happening in Connecticut and why they're in Massachusetts. They were all in Israel recently, and they uncovered a lot of stuff which made them cry about human trafficking, kid trafficking, all the things you don't want to know about. And you need to wonder, okay, how, for example, in the Stamford Superior Court, if the state's 40% Democrat and 20% Republican, why we have one Republican judge in the entire county, okay, and his uncle is William Gennario, priest pedophile of the Catholic Church. And you wonder what they're holding over him. I'm asking you, do you think these guys are compromised or what? No, I'm serious.
Can I just say, this is for me? I mean, I'm a spiritual guy. This is good versus evil. I don't even want to get into the politics, but I do want to leave you with this, okay? And by the way,
thanks, guys.
I say that endorsing my friend John Flynn, okay? Because this guy.
Let's talk to Kevin. Let Kevin speak. Say something that you think.
Wait.
Oh, come on, John.
Kevin, I got to keep you off for one more time. I got
wait.
3 here. This is from the Connecticut Constitution, Section 6. In all prosecutions or indictments for libel, the truth may be given in evidence, and the jury shall have the right to determine the law and the facts under the direction of the court. That's Section 6.
There's no jury trials, guys. There's none.
That's what. Here's number 10. All courts shall be open, and every person for injury done to him in his person, property, or reputation shall have the remedy by due course of law and the right and justice administered without sale, denial, or delay.
Hey, Tim, put your hand over your mouth.
The privileges of the writ of habeas corpus, which we filed, shall not be suspended unless when in a case of rebellion or invasion, when public safety may require it, or nor in any case. And then this is the one that really gets me. Okay. Note Section 19. The right of trial by jury shall remain inviolate, no matter what. Now, in my case, I've requested jury trial because no judge can come before me, can rule without bias. I'm arresting 15 of them. So what judge is going to be fair with me in a trial? Can't be. I want a jury.
There's no judges left, dude.
By the way, I have a petition of 200 people asking for a jury trial. Where's my jury trial?
I would assume that the state is going to continue to exploit the C word and continue to declare emergency powers and put off all of these things and suspend all of our rights to continue on with this charade, this racket, this judicial misconduct and everything else associated with it. I don't see any end in sight. I mean, even with the midterms coming up, this state is still buttoned down quite a bit. The mask mandate has been lifted here and there, and some schools are finally dialing some stuff back. There's new information coming out from the CDC and other entities showing us how wrong they had it all along. And even with that, we're still being, the cap is still being twisted down on us. And I really, as positive and as optimistic as I would like to look at things, I see it getting worse. Again, right after the midterms, they're going to batten down those hatches even tighter on us. And that's going to limit, I think, in my humble opinion, limit any sort of remote possibility to get a jury trial in this state anytime soon.
Well, let me also let you know one other thing that everybody should know that's listening to this. The situation where we don't have sheriffs also enable us to execute a thing that's known as the Young Doctrine. You can look it up on Wikipedia, ex parte Young. The Young Doctrine allows a U.S. Marshal to come in and arrest a judge, a governor, or so forth and so on. Okay? And so basically the U.S. Department of Justice, it's kind of like the old marshal coming into town. He's the law. Now, you have to be able to prove that you have a felony, but they are supposed to act. Now, we've been in the process of getting in front of the U.S. Marshal Service here in New Haven, but we're also I believe, and I have no way of proving this right now, that the U.S. Marshal's office here in the state of Connecticut is compromised. Why? Because
I would have to agree.
This is a criminal state, and it's flying around all over the place. We got, child trafficking. We got everything going on. Drugs running between New York and Boston to Rhode Island to you name it. All this stuff going on, and people seem to be looking the other way. But anyway, you got to start the process as the law is, and you got to keep going to the U.S. Marshal and saying, hey, this is happening, just so you know, and you're aware. And then you can also contact the people down in Washington. But we, the people, we have the power to arrest these people. And by doing that, they're caught. And I have proof of that because of some rulings from other judges in other cases where they've mentioned my case and they don't know what to do, which means they're caught. And I'm not trying to put my case up on a pedestal. It's what it's showing is the arrest of their felony acts that are administrative pierces the veil of judicial immunity.
I love what you've done. I think the capious was well written. It's very inspiring. I love your tenacious, your genuine motivation, your attitude, your decorum. I think what you're doing is absolutely what needs to be done. It's just so
frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a drop. It seems like so much. It's so much to get to that point. And what is it doing? Well, they're just not picking it up. They won't allow you to serve that state's attorney. I've seen guys try to do exactly what you did with that documentation. Serve our officials, and they get arrested instead. And even going back a little further on other elements of what we touched on this evening, the Connecticut police here in this state, local law enforcement, are doctoring, editing body cam footage. I mean, we see this stuff all the time in the YouTube First Amendment audit and government accountability platform here, a community.
Oh, yeah.
The police will either just lose the footage. Oh, sorry, the audio got corrupted, or, oh, sorry, half of the frame has been blocked out because of an error on our system. And everything that's blocked out is all the evidence that the victim needs. It happens over and over and over again, and it's happening on a far regular occurrence that is well beyond the realm of being coincidental. You know, I
But
mean,
we need to free Sam. That's what we need to do, because this is absurd. This can happen to anybody. We
first
need
and
to free
foremost,
Sam.
we need to help him
free
and his
Sam.
health. We need to make sure he gets his medications and his medical devices. And I think number one on my list tomorrow morning is my effort to try and help facilitate that. You know, I can only do so much. I can only make phone calls. I can complain. I could try to harass the right person in the prison. But beyond that, I mean, what can we do as a collective here to assure that this man is going to be well taken care of and that his health needs are met until his next court date? Because I truly, truly believe, given, you know, the conditions that you mentioned here, and the complete sheer criminal negligence of our officials involved, that he's never going to make it until May. He's never going to make it. And we got to make sure that he does. You know, this is a very, you know, important member of our society who's embarked upon very important, serious work on behalf of all of us. And the great personal sacrifice he's taken in doing that has taken its toll on this man. He is in prison and he is being killed by our officials who just completely neglect his health. It's totally unacceptable. It makes me want to leap out of my skin here in anger and frustration. I mean, I wish you guys could be a fly on the wall when this live stream is over and I go talk to my wife about all this stuff.
Let me, John.
Yeah, let me make two quick comments. First, Sam calls daily. If you want to be on the conference call, I'll connect you, okay? You got to hear it in his voice. I've been connecting him to his daughter, okay? She is freaking out. She's being targeted. It's tough for a teenager to go to school knowing your dad's in prison, okay, and that everyone knows. But something equally important I'd like to mention now. The fact that we know there's court dates coming up, we should share this information and get not 9 people in the courtroom, but 90, you know? So here we go.
Right.
There's a case coming up on March 29th that I'm going to, hopefully. It's Tor Moss. Let me explain this situation so people can understand. Tor Moss is a Bridgeport, very slender African-American, constitutional, amazing, brilliant guy.
He's brilliant.
From the slums, okay? God knows how he was created and what his purpose is, but I'll tell you this. His mom's house was stolen due to foreclosure on a $1,200 water bill. She had no mortgage. A lawyer purchased that water bill and jacked him interest penalties and God knows kinds of legal fees for the time. And he ended up paying like, I don't know, $15,000 to pay a $1,200 water bill. Now, they put the house in foreclosure, falsified the appraisal, stole the house. So what happened then? Then they went after Tor's father's house.
In the middle of Yale University.
Stole it. And it's next to, or it's on the same block, I think, as a prominent law firm. It's in that area. It's the Marcus Law Group. When you look at what happened to Tor, stealing the mother's house, then they stole the father's house. In the middle of stealing the father's house, the law firm kept buying liens and forcing foreclosure. He paid $75,000, like for a $3,000 bill, $45,000. Excuse me? He doesn't want to lose his father's house after losing his mother's house. So then what? He files a counterclaim in the dad's house. The judge has him arrested. The judge is self-dealing, in my opinion. Spader is the biggest criminal in the state. He's probably arranged for billions of mortgage fraud cases. Steered to Cazenovia Creek, okay, which I can show you a video that we made that has 9,000 views that we never thought would be popular. It turns out these 53 people that we interviewed all saw the video, leading to some phenomenal whistleblowing events, which we haven't announced. But when you look at the facts, a guy watched that video. A father told his son, call these guys, tell them what's going on in Block Island. It will blow your mind what's going on in Block Island. Okay? That's a separate story. But what I'm saying is, we need people to show up in New Haven on March 29th for Tor. Why? He's a perfect gentleman. He's an outstanding intellect. And
He's brilliant.
he's suffering from what?
If you spoke,
He's a victim, just like
if
Sam.
you if you spoke to Tor, you would sit there and go, "Wow, this guy's just street," right? Because that's the way he talks. He's just street. But I'm
Yeah.
telling you, I told him he is
He's
beyond
amazing.
brilliant.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
And he's got a heart of gold. Okay. So the fact is, the way you stop the mortgage foreclosure mill that was started in 2014 by our own Senate in Connecticut, by our own benchmark commission, this is what happened, which will blow your mind. Hear me out. Ready?
Right.
They let the lobbyists write the new laws.
Yeah.
The lobbyists bribed the senators to sign the bill.
Yeah.
And they get a piece of the action, folks.
We can do a whole show on this, though. I mean, I really do. I really want to state, Sam. We really want to have
I know,
people
but we got to
connect.
get the word out.
We got to get the word out. The minute we have the
Sure.
opportunity to get in front of people, and I think this one, we are going to be able to get in a court and speak about Judge White. And when that day comes, I want as many people as possible there to hear what happened.
Yeah.
Let me just read you a case law, real simple. It's 3 lines out from the U.S. Supreme Court. It is important to note that even judges do not enjoy absolute immunity for administrative as opposed to judicial actions. Forster versus White. Okay? The determination is made using a functional approach. Okay? And basically that says you determine whether it's an administrative act or not. Now, an administrative act is like you can't run a red light. Okay? A judge has to do certain things. He's got to stamp things certain ways. He's got to act according to the law in certain ways to run his court. That is what we're talking about. And the main theme, just so everybody, this long conversation about all these parts and arresting judges, the main theme is this, that I came to when I said, how do I attack these guys? Is I started thinking about Capone. And Capone got taken down for his taxes, right? That's it. That's what they took him down with. It wasn't that he killed somebody. It wasn't that he robbed a bank. It wasn't that he was doing liquor. They got him for his taxes, a technical thing of his taxes. That's exactly what is being done in these situations. This Judge White and this state attorney in Sam's case sped way, way too fast and ran the red light. They ran the red light. And there's no way to deny it. You got it on videotape. You have it witnessed. You've run the red light, sir. You're under arrest. I don't care if you're a judge or not. And by the way, I'm the new sheriff in town because you got rid of sheriffs. You're under arrest. It's that simple. And I really thank you for this opportunity. I really, really thank you for this opportunity, guys. And I love
Andrew, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on board. You are a wealth of knowledge. I love your attitude, especially in regard to being the new sheriff in town. I hope to take a leap off of the work I'm providing the public here on this YouTube channel, further onto a campaign to run for constitutional sheriff. I don't know how to bring sheriffs back to Connecticut, but I think I would like to take it a step further and actually become an elected sheriff and be able to deputize people like you or have you run as sheriff right alongside of me in your county, in your town. And, I think there's a very clear reason that everyone could see why we need constitutional sheriffs. The foxes are running the hen houses here.
I believe that we can just even write on a ballot and elect somebody. I believe, just like I believe, and I haven't looked deep enough into this, but that we as people, the public, can form a grand jury.
Right. Yeah. I just read something about that just a couple of weeks ago.
I read about that too.
So these things are really what, I mean, hate to say this, people, but you're going to have to get off your ass and fight for your freedom and your rights. Okay. And this is what's going on right now. That's what this is.
Andrew,
Yes,
there
sir.
are questions for you in the chat you need to answer. Maybe people are asking you questions. So if you look, do you see the chat?
I don't know. Where are they? How do I see that?
I think on your machine, you need to enable the chat because they keep asking, has Andrew missed his mortgage payment? And I say, no, he hasn't. Has Andrew done this? How many people has Andrew arrested? They misunderstand the question. Andrew's filed court documents that are a Connecticut right. For example, yes, you have a right to form a grand jury. Yes, that's in Connecticut general statutes. No one ever does it, but maybe we should try it. If that's our protection against corruption in the judicial system, then, I'd like to ask, Kevin Allen to say anything. See, this is the thing. His opinion as a first-time observer is important. If he has a question, I think we should be able to answer it, and he may have them. You know what I mean? Kevin, what do you think?
Oh, thanks, John. And I hate to I just put up here. I got to jump to another thing on the West Coast, but I got to tell you, I'm sitting here amazed by the energy and Andrew's standing up. I've witnessed many folks at the state capitol during my time serving in government, as well as just being astute to the government process. People standing with a message, and clearly, I think there's some things that, based on my DNA, I got and Tim knows this, and John knows this, and Andrew, with respect to your position, I have a lot of skepticism about the failed system, but I do know that I learn every day that there's another level of corruption in a lot of the systems that are in place that we all just sleep. It's kind of like Jack Nicholson. You need me on that wall, you want me on that wall concept as we kind of mull about as sheep in the system, and we've seen that over the last 6 years or so, at least 5, when Donald Trump arrived to the White House. And I know you said not to be political, but I'm sorry, this is who I am. And we saw the opening of the dirty sardines down in Washington, D.C., and the smell kind of oozed out. And I don't doubt corruption exists. I'm intrigued by your concept of being able to really arm the average citizen with the law, which is definitely on the side of the average citizen. One of my interesting things I'd like to say is when I was serving as a first selectman, I really was intrigued by the statutes that allowed me, being I was actually a chief of police under the statutes in Connecticut existing. Now, some of that language was changed a few years ago, but I could actually, and I looked into it here in Griswold, Connecticut, establishing a constable program where I was going to assign people in my community the rights of arrest, and certainly some communities still have that in existence. I think I did a query on the state of all 169 towns, and I think what we came up with is maybe 13 examples of existing small governments that use those kind of forces to really enforce maybe local ordinance and such. I think it's time for the people of Connecticut to ask for full clarity, for full exposure. And John, you taught me one thing. All the stuff that you and I talked about over the last year or so, a lot of stuff. I looked at you. You saw the look I gave you, and I'm like, hey, what the hell are you talking about? And honestly, we see a lot of the things come into fruition. So I just want to commend this group. Look, I don't need to agree with everything you're saying. I feel bad for Sam's situation. John, please share me some information directly and let me know what I can do, if there's something I can do, if I believe it's something that I'm
the thing is,
part of it.
We need 50,000 views and we're getting 2,000. If 50,000 people started figuring out that if they don't get involved in stopping if it's socialism coming our way, or whatever rights you're really starting to lose, these things are practically impossible to get back.
I got something that will pique everybody's interest. That no matter what, if anyone owns a home, okay, if anyone owns a home in the state of Connecticut, you need to look up this statute and read it because it will blow your mind. It's Connecticut General Statute, okay, 47-36AA. 47-36AA. And just to put in perspective, us four here, we all can put a lien on every single house in Connecticut. And if nobody says anything after like 10 years or 15 years, hey, our lien's good. And you know what happens down at town hall when you put a lien on something? The town clerk doesn't call you up and say somebody put a lien on your property. Nobody notifies you. So if you guys want a sure thing, go down to the town of Greenwich, put a $500,000 lien on every mansion and kick back. I'm sure there'll be a couple where they just hand them down from family member to the next family member. You're going to get 500,000 sooner or later. I mean, it's insane. And when you read that statute, also as to documentation and stuff, you're going to go, oh my God, I have no they can steal my house.
I think
they
it's
can write something on a napkin and steal my house. Anybody's
with
house.
that said, I think it would be indicative of us to go ahead and do a show on that unto itself. I think you could spend an hour on that easy.
47-36AA. When you read it, you'll say, there is what the excuse me, are doing, and what are they doing up there in the legislature? Then you know that the government, I mean, you'll be like, oh my God. They own, basically, your house is anybody's. I can write it on the back of a napkin. Thank you. I assigned the house to me.
Before we close the show out,
yeah, cool. That's a nice trick.
Hey, thanks, guys.
I'm sorry for taking so much of the show.
It was good.
Yeah.
It was all good. By the way, no one's going to actually figure this stuff out that easily. And it's going to take a lot of repetition, unfortunately, because we didn't even touch half the topics I wanted to bring up.
Are we off?
No, it's going.
Well, whoever asked the question about the number,
off.
I've arrested 15 judges or what I have under arrest. And I've had a motion for capias in court before the criminal judge Blower.
You know, can you say anything about the Marshals Service that you're trying to point out to them that they're also breaching their duty, that they've now become...
The U.S. Marshals?
Yeah.
Yeah, the U.S. Marshals, I put documentation in front of the U.S. Marshals, and by their duty and oath, they have to act on the felonies that are before them. And a marshal that basically put me off for 2 months just up and refused to do it. So now I'm going to be heading up to the U.S. Marshal's office in New Haven to seek out his supervisor, talk to them, lay it all out again. And because I need to follow the law every which way, and then I'll just go higher up the ladder.
Let me mention this. The chief court administrator is Patrick Carroll in the state of Connecticut. He's got connections to, all these mortgage companies we've been talking about. And I've been copying him in on every single thing that we discuss, which is alarming because I've called his office. I talked to his secretary. She's lovely. We talk for like 10 minutes every time. And I say, hey, now we have 16 judges with arrest warrants within the statute and no one willing to take him into custody. And he sits there, keep in mind, he's the guy that he's the highest ranking judge in the state. He knows Spader because Spader had committed so many problems in Bridgeport that they removed him and sent him to Stamford Superior Court to do the same thing that he's been getting away with. And he's done it to 7,000 homes. 7,000 homes.
Hey, John, Andrew, I don't hate to chime in. I got to go. I got a deadline.
Hey,
But John,
thank you.
Reach out. Andrew, it was a pleasure meeting you. I'm looking forward to, you're definitely an educator. You definitely gave me a lot of great, nighttime reading tonight. So thank you so much. John, thank you.
No,
Tim,
thank you.
Appreciate you guys. I'll talk to you
All right.
soon.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Have a good one.
Yeah, Kevin's a smart guy to have involved. You know why? He's got nationwide views.
Oh, good.
The Tyrant Slayer is probably good for activists. Kevin brings law enforcement into it.
Okay. Well, we'll we got to get Sam out. I'm going to start rattling the cage with Sam.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, we did lose. So I guess we could just call it a day.
Yes.
And I thank the audience.
Thank you.
All you who came along. We're going to share this. It's live. Yeah, we're going to send it to Facebook, Twitter, everywhere we can, because it's important that people understand that their property rights, which it might be their substantial asset in life, can be totally undermined, your ownership and your protections on your property, when in fact the judges are in fact self-dealing, one reason or another.
Yep.
We found that out the hard way.
Thank
But
you.
sharing these videos would enable other people. I'm sure Andrew can name 10 ladies currently losing their houses. I can name 10.
Easy.
So when you look at the number of people losing their fully paid for houses, like Andrew, you say to yourself, hold on a second, who had a right to put a lien on the property? Well, technically, when those mortgage mills collected drive-by fees, collected appraisal fees, collected legal fees, then interest compounded weekly or monthly, some of these interest rates they charge are as high as 43%. So if they steal your water bill from your town clerk or from your municipality and prevent you from paying it, they can then falsify an appraisal and steal your house from you at half the market value, like they did to Andrew.
Let's end on a positive note. Let me give you another nugget that everyone should know that's actually here in Connecticut for everyone to use. There's such a thing called, in a lot of places you can look it up, and it's called a land patent. But the truth is, it's a allodial title. In our case here in Connecticut, it'll be an allodial title. What you need to do is go down to town hall and find your chain of title, okay? And you basically find out who owned your house before and on down the line. And what you do is you'll get to what's known as a guaranteed title, an allodial title. That guaranteed title is sovereign land. Okay? They can't touch anything. They can't take your land, even if they have a mortgage on it. They can't do anything because that title is sovereign land. And we got it from the king. Okay? And all of us sitting here in Connecticut, we sit on that land. You just got to keep going back down to town hall until you find it. And then it says, right in there and in the script, the fancy script of the book, it'll say all owners and who have a right and heirs and everything else. And you're good. And that goes all the way to the Supreme Court. It's the supreme law of the land. If it doesn't work, we don't have any constitution and the country's null and void because property rights are paramount and we're all sitting on it. You just got to find it. I'm already back to,
thank you, Tyrant Slayer.
Yep.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you very much, sir.
I think we had a great show. I'd like to reconvene with you guys tomorrow morning off the air, of course, and see what we can't put together as an effective idea to get Sam the help that he needs health-wise in there, man. I mean, that's a very serious issue that could come back and bite us in the ass while we get lost in the legalese of things.
No, I'm not. That's where
they're denying him eyeglasses.
Yeah, that's insane. That's insane.
The poor guy.
Yeah. Well, thank you
I
very
heard
much
the
for
dis-
joining
I
us,
heard the
everybody, this
discussion.
evening.
I heard.
Thank you.
I got to
Thank
give
you.
it up to the audience members. Let's shout out to the audience members real
Yes,
quick.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We got George Ward. Thank you so much for being here. Broken System, Broken Trust. Les Paul, Silk City Pete. Always a pleasure to see the familiar faces and names. Barry St. Clair. Thank you so much for
Beth
being here.
Profeta.
D.
Beth!
Furkey. Seeing
Beth
Crypto.
Profeta. Check it out. She had her house stolen too.
Lion
Right
One.
here.
Always a pleasure to see you
Right.
here.
By the way, you should research her story. It is the most amazing story you will ever hear. Right, Beth?
We will get to it. Let's see.
And
John
shared.
Denicola, thank you so much. Beautiful things God has made. Thank you so much for the kind words here. Zamir from Iraq. We got some fans up in Iraq. Thank you so much for joining us from the other side of the world, sir. We've got Byron Brubaker. Thank you so much. And let's see. All around pig's ass is pork. Gotta say, that's a very distinguished name. Thank you so much for being here. Love the t-shirt, Andrew. If there was ever a good sheriff in Connecticut, I would imagine it's going to be you.
I got my Ben Franklin on, baby.
Bravo.
Lori Kunkel, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the comments and interaction in the live chat. Let's see, did I miss anyone? Beth Profeta. There you
She's
go,
awesome.
Beth.
You gotta love this girl, people.
Litchfield County judges need to be arrested as well. Well,
Oh, yeah,
looks
they
like
do.
we got our work cut out for us, Andrew. John.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm telling you, her story is remarkable.
All right. Yeah, we should have her on sometime. Beth, if you're still with us, I'd love to start jiving and see if we can't get you on board. We'd love to have you to share your story and help you out best we can. Just the exposure alone, maybe all the help you need.
It's totally about organized crime.
Elizabeth Profeta versus Birmingham. Elizabeth Profeta versus U.S. Bank. Hey, you're welcome. All around pig's ass is pork. Thank you so much again for all the comments. Hey, Beth. There you go. Absolutely. Glad to see you're still with us. I would imagine you've got a line of contact with Beth, John.
Yes.
Maybe I should just leave you with a cliffhanger.
Yeah, let's do that. Why don't you wrap it up with the cliffhanger, and we'll maybe get in touch with Beth and have her on
Stay
sometime later
tuned,
this week.
folks, because Beth's story is so remarkable. Her mom murdered by her, I think, stepdad. Correct me if I'm wrong. Her, half brother went to jail for throwing a Molotov cocktail into a bar and served 43 days. They are members of the Danbury organized crime, and thus her house was stolen. And she has, I think, 4 kids and a granddaughter living with her. The struggles she's had to endure, you wouldn't believe she's from America. You should have her tell the entire story. I mean, I gave tidbits here. She has
Yeah, we're definitely going to have her on.
She had billboards about her mom. We have pictures. There's court documents. There's testimony. There's transcripts. The story is so alarming, you cannot believe that it's the United States of America and Connecticut in the 21st century.
It's bad.
John Flynn for the win. John Flynn for Senate here in the state of Connecticut. Andrew Pritchard for sheriff. Tim Riley following a close second just behind him. And there you have it, folks. That is our show for this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Kevin Allen, thank you so much for being here and joining us as well. Loved to get your insight, opinions, and analysis here in all of this with us. It was great to have you aboard. We'd love to do it again. Until next time, folks, keep sharp, keep swift, and keep up the good fight.
I forgot a really good part of that story. Check it out. The judge was bribed by her stepfather in the murder of her mother.
That's right.
And it's in the newspaper.
That's right. That's right.
Wow. So lots to uncover, lots to expose here, and we will do just that. We will oppose and expose all forms of tyranny here at Tyrant Slayer Studios. It's our modus operandi, and we are doing it together with you and for you. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
God bless.